Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Turgeon, and I am an international student advisor at Green River College. And tonight I'm here to talk to you about majoring in communication or communication studies or communications. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I will be going over the differences between the different kinds of communications majors that are offered. I'll talk about classes that you may want to start with when you attend Green River College that will help prepare you for those different majors. I'll talk about specific universities you may want to transfer to for those majors and give you some additional advice about planning for the major. And then finally, I'll just tell you about one student of ours who was a communications major and about what she's up to today. So along the way, I'll go over to Facebook Live to see if there's any questions from the audience. But otherwise, let's get started. So thanks for joining me. So first of all, I wanted to talk to you about the different areas of communications that you can study. So there is actually a difference between communication as a major or communication sciences and then communications. So the major of communication is going to focus on the social scientific study of communication. So specifically, those are the processes by which humans use symbols, verbal and nonverbal, to create meaning and form relationships with other humans in face-to-face or mediated environments. So this would be much more of a academic style major where you'd be investigating things like nonverbal communication, interpersonal communication, so between me and another human being, or intercultural communication, so between me as an American and potentially you as someone from a foreign country. So it's going to be much more based in the social sciences. So a much more academic approach to how we communicate. So then there's going to be a series of what I would call 3 communications majors. So I'm adding an S here. The first of which is public relations and advertising, which is also called strategic communications. So if you're in that major, you're going to learn how to deliver information from a business, an organization, a government body, or an individual public figure, for example, a presidential candidate, to a target audience. So how are you going to deliver information about this entity to a target audience? If you're thinking about advertising, you're going to learn how to design and develop communication pieces that clients or your audience members are going to seek out and pay for. Now, if you're interested in public relations, your courses are going to focus on how to achieve kind of image management, generate publicity, and earn positive media attention through things like press releases, press conferences, blogs, social media posts, etc. So that would be the first kind of communications major called strategic communications. The second is journalism, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. And that's going to be a much more hands-on education. Well, you're going to learn everything you need to know about pursuing a career in journalism. So you'll get specialized training in reporting, research, editing, and more. And you'll learn how to craft compelling articles for both print media and online media. A subset of journalism, I would say, is called radio, television, and digital communications. So in this type of major, you're going to learn both on camera and behind the scenes. So not only reporting, researching, writing, editing, news directing, but also producing. How do you use cameras, audio equipment, et cetera, to produce a certain type of journalistic piece. If you're interested in radio, television, and digital communications, you would be working in radio, television, and on the web for multimedia news organizations. So most news organizations at this point are just not solely print. They use a variety of different sources, especially online digital sources, to reach their audience members. So those are the kind of four majors. So one is communication, and then the other three are what I would call communications majors. So let's see if there's anyone on the chat. I don't see that currently. So let us move on to the next question a lot of students ask me. So you now know you want to be a communications major. Maybe you're not sure which one of those four majors you're interested in. What classes should you start with? I think all students, actually, regardless of major, should start off with public speaking. So that's Communication Studies 220 at Green River College. That prepares you to give public presentations, both as an individual and in a group of presenters on a variety of different topics, whether it's a persuasive type of presentation or an argument you're trying to present in a presentation. So public speaking is really one of the building blocks of all majors, but especially communications majors. Another one is a class called Introduction to Mass Media. So that's going to introduce you to all the different forms of media: print, web, radio, television, etc. That's called Communication Studies 102. So those are some good starter courses for you. I think after that, depending on which type of communication major you choose, you'd want to choose different courses. So if you're interested in advertising, public relations, that needs some understanding of economics and also an understanding of individual psychology. So why is it someone would be attracted to certain kind of advertising over others, for example? So those are some classes you'd want to take if you were majoring in public relations or advertising. For radio, digital, and television, you'd want to also look at any media or journalism courses. So Green River, for example, we offer courses in digital journalism. We have our own radio station. You can take a course on how to present a podcast and record a podcast. So these types of technical skills are good courses to take if you're interested in radio, television, and digital communications. If you're just interested in a general communication studies degree, you would take public speaking plus a couple other communication studies courses, usually interpersonal communication, small group communication, for example. So those are some of the classes you would start off with. And as a communications major, you have quite a bit of flexibility. It's not as rigorous or demanding of a major as far as required courses as something like mathematics or business or engineering. There's a bit more flexibility in the courses you can take to complete your overall degree, or either whether that's an associate degree at Green River or a bachelor's degree. So let me just go back and see if we have any questions. I don't believe that we do. Okay, so moving on. Which universities should I think about transferring to? There's a couple good standard universities that I think would be good for all the majors that I mentioned. That would be something like University of Southern California, Boston University on the East Coast, or Syracuse University, which is in upstate New York. Those have all very strong programs in the majors that I mentioned. Some I'd like to highlight for each major are, for example, for communication studies, you might want to look at a school like University of Wisconsin-Madison, UCLA or UC Berkeley, or Ohio State University. For public and relations and advertising, Pepperdine University in California is excellent. American University in Washington, D.C. University of Oregon, which is quite local to us, is a great school for that. And also the University of Illinois, the main campus in Urbana-Champaign. For radio, television, and digital communications, once again, Syracuse, Boston University, University of Southern California. So some of the ones I've already mentioned. And then finally for journalism, Some of the schools I haven't mentioned are University of Missouri, Arizona State University, and Emerson College, which is a small college in the Boston area. So those are some of the universities I would recommend for you if you're interested in a communications major. Okay, so let's go back and see if we have any questions. No questions so far. Okay, that's great. Moving right through this. So I wanted to also give you some other recommendations. So beyond the classes, most of my communications majors want to go into some form of reporting, digital media, etc. So you really want to not only think about your academic coursework, but the ways in which you can participate in those types of kind of clubs or activities or even jobs. So I highly recommend any student interested in communications should consider participating in your college's newspaper, radio station. We have a radio station in Green River, TV station, for example, or if there's social media outlets that are managed by students. You want to get some hands-on experience in writing, editing, and presenting material, whether it's in print or digital form, to an audience, and working with an editor. So it's also very collaborative. If you work at a radio station or a TV station, you're going to work with lots of different types of students, and it's a very good experience for you. We, as I said, we have a radio station, we have a college newspaper. A lot of my communications majors end up working there for experience and then moving on to a radio station, a newspaper, or a TV station when they transfer. Another recommendation I have, once again, really stressing the role of experience, having some kind of professional experience, is looking for internships. So internships are fairly easy to find for communications majors. I just did a quick search on LinkedIn and found many intern possibilities for communications majors just in the Seattle area. So something like a social media intern, a public relations intern, corporate communications intern. And these are across a variety of sectors. So you could intern at a private corporation or business, like, we have Expedia as a travel company here, or Amazon. You could be a public relations intern for a political candidate or some government entity. There's a lot of different options. And social media interns are everywhere in any type of business or organization. They should have a social media intern. And it's a very good kind of entry internship for someone interested in communications. I think my third important recommendation is, you really should be fluent in digital media technologies and platforms. These are really driving the development of this field. Print journalism is kind of receding, is going down in importance. It's still very important, and to kind of learn how to deliver and edit articles and materials in a print publication. But digital media technologies, as far as videos like the one I'm on right now, audio, especially podcasting, and just the wide world of social media outlets, is incredibly important. So you want to be fluent in those, especially as they're very employable skills. And thankfully, as a young person, you are already fluent in many of those, just because of the age demographic you are in. So I think video is a huge component. Learning video editing and kind of presentation skills is very important to being successful in this field, along with kind of interactive media as well. So really look for opportunities to develop those skills. And those are things you can do on your own. And there's free tutorials on the internet that can really provide you with a lot of information to become more fluent in those technologies. Or seek out, internships or even clubs or groups on your campus that can help you develop those skills and those technologies. So those are some of my recommendations beyond your classes and things like that. Okay, what does the job outlook look like? So you've graduated with your degree. What types of jobs would you be looking for? So in the public relations and advertising field, in the United States, that field is expected to grow by between 9 and 10% over the next 10 years, which is very strong growth. If you're in public relations and advertising, you can become a social media manager. You can become a communications specialist at a business or a government office or an organization. You can become a technical writer or copywriter that writes specific texts to kind of enhance the image of the organization or business that you work for. Typically, a public relations major would start as a specialist and over time through experience would become a manager. So you'd manage a group of people who are on your public relations team. So there is kind of a hierarchy in PR and advertising. At first, you usually create the content. And when you become a manager, you start to manage the content, kind of the themes, what's the overall messaging that we want to convey about this organization or this particular person. And you employ your specialists to work on that through print, through media, through television ads, et cetera, et cetera. So that's sort of how you move up through PR at least. As I said, in journalism, print journalism jobs are fewer and farther between. There's much more digital journalism available, not only at major news organizations, but also kind of smaller, reputable blogs and news outlets online. I think if we're thinking about radio, television, or digital communications, which is very related to journalism, that's actually expected to grow by 13 to 15% in the US over the next 10 years, which is quite high. Very strong growth. I think that's mostly through, as I said, digital media video delivery. Most news organizations are really trying to diversify how they share their content with their audience. And so those types of jobs are diversifying and proliferating. Some of the things you can be are, you can be an on-air reporter or newscaster, or if you're very interested in sports, you can become a sportscaster. You might become a digital editor, media editor. You might really love the behind the scenes part and become a producer for a, online news web system, or even like a news program on TV. So you could be behind the scenes doing everything, all the kind of technical work that's required to produce and deliver, a reputable news program on television or online. So radio, television, and digital communications is definitely growing pretty steadily. So those are some ideas about your job outlook, job prospects. Let's see, no questions from the audience. So I wanted to provide you with one example of a student who majored in communications, just as an example of where they ended up. So I wanted to share my screen with you, and I will just go to my page here, which you can see me, and I wanted to introduce you to Kirara from Japan. She transferred out of Green River in 2018 and ended up attending the University of Washington in Seattle, majoring in journalism and communications. While she was at Green River, she actually worked for our radio, which was called Warm 106.9 through OPT, and I believe also while she was a student. She also participated in the school newspaper and was really able to figure out what type of career she wanted through that. She ended up going to the University of Washington, And she now works for an organization that deals with kind of business mergers between Japanese companies and American companies and the communication that goes on there. So she's part of the Office of the President doing research for them. So very interesting where she's ended up. But as I recommended earlier in this webinar, definitely looking for opportunities for you to participate in your college's print media or digital media, radio, etc., to give you a lot of hands-on experience about what that actually looks like in the field. So I'll stop my share, but that's just one example. We have many students that transfer all over the country, including all the universities that I mentioned earlier on in this video. So we have a number of students going to UW, the UCs. Boston University is a very popular option for students who are transferring for communications. We've had some students go to Syracuse. So our students go all over the country to pursue these different majors in communication studies. So I think that's about it for me. I didn't see any questions in the Facebook Live chat. So I want to thank you so much for stopping by, or if you watch this video at a later time, please feel free to write any questions to me. I believe Lansing, my colleague, will leave my email address if you have any additional questions about majoring in communications and what types of careers you might follow that major. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.